Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
Yes.
a boundary might have been crossed
Yes.
that you, right?
That's
So
correct.
just an example
That's a
of,
good example.
it is a great example. I appreciate that for
Yes.
giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen differences negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Hey.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome to Working It Out Across Generations, where we talk all things conflict. And I am one of your co-hosts, Dr. Lynn.
I'm Justin.
And we have a very timely topic and very interesting too. What's the topic, Justin?
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about, is therapy BS? I think that what inspired this topic to come up for today. We are in Men's Mental Health Month. I just want to put that out there. This is for any and everyone, this conversation, all of these conversations, but I do want to say that that is what inspired that we talk about it and that we bring it on the show for this month. So I just want to shout out all the fellas out there, the fellas that are battling some stuff, that they're not comfortable talking about. Just letting you guys know that we here see you guys and, we here appreciate you guys. And so, yeah, I mean, is therapy BS? I feel like there's so many things that go into, why this is even a question nowadays. And, I've heard so many things multi-generationally, right? As far as, why would I pay for that sort of thing, right? You can talk for free. Talking is free. So just go to a friend or go to a family member if that's possible, if that's available, right? And so why would I pay for therapy? That makes no sense. I've even heard or seen shame around people who go to therapy.
Especially men.
There's already such, negative rhetoric out there about us and our feelings and talking things out, really putting those things out in the forefront for others to, help us with. I think it's a very vulnerable thing for anyone to say, I need help in some way. I don't know what to do in this area of my life. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. And, we have somehow honestly weaponized that vulnerability so much into something that people don't even want to do, right? And it's looked at as this like othering thing where, going back to, I don't even know what days we want to start with in history, right? But in the sense of gathering, right? In the sense of talking about our experiences of the world in which we're living in, that's been a part of how we live life and how we function as a society for, I don't even know how long. So to get to a place now where we're sort of shaming others for participating in just that natural human things, right? It just is really, really interesting how this has become so different now, I guess, in the way people think about having a space to talk things out, and therapy being honestly something that people, shouldn't do now, right? It's an interesting thing. And I think that the messages are getting getting through quicker to even younger people as time is going on. And so it's really, really interesting.
Whole thing of be strong, just tough your way out through it. And it in many cases is damaging people. I think that there are things that you can tough it out through. But when you're talking about your mental health, it is something that we all could use some help with. I mean, look at how we're living and what we're living with, and every day is something else. And I understand that you have to have a certain amount of heart and strength to get through things, right? But if you are finding yourself just sad all the time or depressed, or even just a day where you just feel like you don't have it in you to really get through this day in the way that you might normally do it, I think that there are things that you should be thinking about, therapy certainly being one of them. But I also understand that, first of all, I know that in many ancient cultures and cultures outside of the US, there was the whole natural coming together. I know Native American communities, the coming together, the sitting in circles, and we have done circles in our life, and hearing from everyone, getting a chance for people to speak and to share and to be vulnerable. Nowadays, and certainly in the United States, the culture is more, that's for women, right? Especially since we're in Men's Mental Health Month, the things, raising two sons and with a husband who was a social worker therapist, right? To hear the kinds of things that are said to boys, that this is stopping a girl, stop crying, men don't cry, all of the things that can really affect your mental health. I think it's important for us to be having this conversation about whether or not therapy is BS. There's so many things that I think that counterculture to that. And when we start talking about generationally, I can say for generations, what I grew up with were several things. One was, in the Black community, we got Jesus, we don't need therapy. That's something that you absolutely do not need. I grew up with a mom who was very adamant that she didn't see the need for therapy, because if you have one good friend that you can talk to, that's all that you need. And I know that at her wake, her one good friend, she had many good friends, but the one good friend apparently that she spoke to talked about that they shared things that nobody else, right? She said, your mom left here with secrets that I never shared with anybody else on the planet. And while I think that's good, I also will have to say that she really could have used a good therapist to help her to not continue to do some of the kinds of things that she was doing, but also because she grew up with a mother who was pretty cruel to her because she didn't know how to do anything different, right? And she could have used somebody to talk through that with, because it definitely affected her, which ultimately affected my sister and I in the way that, and my dad in the way And he certainly could have used a therapist. We talking about men's mental health. He could have used a therapist. He grew up with 5 sisters. He was the oldest, the only boy, and a mother who he adored, and they were a team from the time he was 13 and his father died. He really could have used therapy.
Jeez, you could have used one. And we're not saying it's the end all be all, the only tool or thing that works, right? Because I hear a lot of things, especially if we're getting into generational takes. I hear a lot from my generation, like, oh, well, I can just talk to this friend, or I can just go to the gym, or I can just find something where it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And it helps, in the shortcomings, right? The short beings, right? The short term. But we're talking about therapy, the actual space, the hub where you're dealing with, a professional, someone who has studied and spent a certain amount of time on, really getting good at that skill. It takes a lot of skill to be that type of person, and really going into those deep places, right? The places within yourself that you don't want to explore, that you are afraid to explore, that are very much the unknown. And, we think that if anything, this is just such a vital part of the piece of the puzzle that, actually helps enhance the experiences that you have with other things in your life that are therapeutic, right? At the end of the day, going to the gym, yes, it's therapeutic, right? But it's not going to help you with the communication aspects to yourself or others with, expressing a want or a need that's not being met, right? Things like that are where, I really want to be clear about, just the differences in, how we find sanctuary in certain things versus actual hubs where that is where you go for healing. And I think therapy is one of those things. And so I think, my generation is definitely way more open to going to therapy, to, talking some of these things out. I think it's really, really interesting. I don't know if this is a my generation thing or just, a technological advancement and evolution kind of thing. But, as much as I know people are very much for mental health and aware that we're in Men's Mental Health Month, I haven't seen a lot of posts about it, right? A whole lot of things on social media about, giving support and all of that. I've seen little droplets here and there, right? But when we think about any other month or any other movement going on, right, really what gets talked about, this isn't one of those things where I think it gets monetized in algorithms because of how uncomfortable, deep, scary, dark at times that these conversations and these revelations within those conversations can get. And we all know the comment section can be a hub for healing and fun or engagement, or the complete opposite, right? It can be something that makes people want to take themselves out of this world. And I think the reality is it's that deep, you know what I mean? People are taking themselves out of this world, every single day and in large numbers for a plethora of reasons. And
aren't they, I didn't grow up with, first of all, social media, but I also didn't grow up with people encouraging other people to take themselves out of this world. Oh
yeah. That's a huge thing. I mean, that's so much so it's a part of the way we as young people joke sometimes. It's whether it's on video games or we're hanging out. And that's another thing I've never really gotten down with. I just want to say for anyone, you can't be, I don't think this is one of those things where you can be both, in the way you could be posting about men's mental health, all that stuff. And however you identify, man and woman, however you identify, then in the same breath, when you're with your friends joking around, telling people unalive themselves, right? However, I'm all for humor and I'm all for even dark humor and things of that nature, but that's just never been a lane that I've been willing to go down as far as jokes that I'll share with people or say things in a joking manner, because you really don't know the battles that people are fighting on a day-to-day basis. And what ultimately leads them to those choices are, unfortunately, reinforcement from the world, the outside world, that whatever they're feeling, they somehow need to, as you said, suck it up, tough it out. All that stuff, which is what I think your generation was born and bred off of, tough it out, why are you crying, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Even as a girl.
Yeah, like you scrape your knee, it's like, you're bleeding and gushing, you need some aid, but it's like, throw some dirt on it. And that's, I think true in some aspects of life, right? Where we just gotta, throw some dirt on it, roll with the punches,
right,
and just keep moving, right? For the sake of movement. However, I think we're just so pushing out the messages of, run away from the stuff you're feeling or suppress it as much as possible. I think there's still messaging and imagery out there of, people thinking their feelings are too much or could
right,
overtake,
or
they're too much because of the feelings that they're having, right? And I think we just see what that ultimately does to a person. I think too much of anything, as you've heard us say, is unhealthy. So when someone hears these things and sees these things on a day-to-day basis for a long enough time, they're not really going to start to believe them, but they'll start thinking about, what are those next steps that I could take to achieve the ultimate peace? And unfortunately, in just record numbers, we're seeing people think that, peace is the ultimate end all be all to want to achieve. And, how do you achieve peace? By, being here in the most unpeaceful plane that we have, right?
And it's an epidemic.
It's a very deep epidemic. It's a very deep thing.
It's really true.
It's affected us personally. So I think that this topic overall is also just really personal for us. And so.
Yeah. And what do you think of the, in your growing up? And your dad was a therapist, but I'm going to tell you, everybody that does whatever they do, sometimes they're the worst people at doing it for themselves or with their family. So I'm just wondering what messages you may have received growing up from us around therapy, because we also took you to church. We're praying family, because I'll address that. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, and I believe everybody's got to believe what they believe. But I also do believe in therapy, and I do think that there are, I think that God gives people the purpose and the talent and the drive and the desire to help other people in this lane. So they go to school and they learn to be a professional to help. I don't think that there's anything ungodly, right, or blasphemous about being a therapist and going to therapy. I don't believe that. I believe that there's certainly room for us to be able to do that. And in particular, I think men have been really shunned away from that. And so back to my question around you, like, what was it like in your household? What messages did we give you about that, if any?
Yeah, I think I got good, but also mixed messages.
Okay.
I think of the good, I definitely was always given the opportunity to share what was going on in my life. There was no conversation that was off limits in my household, which I really, really appreciated, especially, shifting from like middle school to high school and going through some of those changes. So that was definitely one thing that I really, really appreciated. I think as far as some of the mixed messaging, though, right, I'm someone who feels heavily. I feel a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. And there was a time where I wasn't proud of that. Mm-hmm. I wasn't confident in that. I wasn't able to bounce back into, I guess, either loving or appreciating myself after something didn't go the way I wanted it to. That bounce back wasn't always as sharp and whatever. Those are really muscles that you have to build. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the messaging that I got from adults in my life in that time where it was not easy to bounce back and snap out of it was, you're dramatic. You're just too emotional. The dramatic thing really pissed me off. Right. Because I really was a kid that was being, messed with at school and all that stuff. And bounced around friend groups. Right. So I didn't really feel like cemented or stuck in anything. I didn't really feel like anything was mine. And I was already going through, as a natural young kid who's just stepping out into the world, right, figuring out who they are. I'm already going through the whole, well, if I don't fit in here, like, what's wrong with me? And like, if I don't fit in there, well, what's wrong with me? There's all these things, right? And so I think being met with when I got home like, you're dramatic, you're emotional, like stuff like that, especially from, like, honestly, my parents at times. I think that didn't help at all any of the want for me to approach the plate when it comes to having conversations. It's not that we couldn't have them, it's that I became more resistant to stepping up to the plate to approach them.
Right.
And so I think, as far as, stuff that gets said and things of that nature, right? I'm really about foundation setting. So the reality is that even if it became hard for me to approach these people in my life, they had already set strong foundations to where I knew that I could always, come back. The door was always open. I could always, pick up where we left off. No door was ever just closed and shut on, this is how we see things. This is how we do things. Even with, I love that you brought up, religion and prayer. We are a Christian-based family, absolutely. But there was also a time with that where I wasn't, faith-oriented or faith-based. I was very much more result-driven. So it felt like, even at times also, where it was like, oh, you're being dramatic, like, just pray through it. It's like, what am I waiting for the answers that I need right now when I could find a place, find a therapist, and really, attack some of this stuff right now and build some of these muscles down instead of praying for the muscles or praying for the strength to deal with this stuff later, right? So I just think that I got very mixed messages, to be quite frank, from the people who I hold the highest regard to when it comes to having these kinds of conversations. And, I think that even now I'm one of the big catalysts in my home for bringing up mental health and bringing up, addressing of that stuff for, a plethora of reasons. I've been handed that assignment, but that is one of my assignments. And, I don't hold any of that stuff now in a place of like, well, screw them for that and any of that, right? But there definitely was a time growing up when I didn't have the language, didn't have
I definitely think I failed you in a lot of ways.
Didn't have the confidence to, bounce back and feel secure in who I am. That was earlier when I was younger, right?
Right.
But it's different now. But even now, like, I wouldn't say fail. Like you say that, I wouldn't.
But
say
that's
fail,
mine to hold to use those words. So I would say that. First of all, in terms of the God piece, it reminds me of a line in Tyler Perry movie where this character, a character tells Medea, right? Well, you need to just pray, and Medea says, "God take too long." And I know
I respect the hell out of that. Yeah, I respect the hell out of that.
And I love that line because yes, God is right on time. We know all of that, but I understand that immediate answer is not necessarily going to be there. It's rare that I've ever gotten immediate answer. But the reason I said that I feel like I failed you is because I was dealing with my own mental health issues and not dealing with them well. I will say I absolutely respect the field of therapy, and I think that it is more needed than it is being used. However, I've had many different and I'm sorry, I just didn't have good experience.
Fair.
I just didn't.
Many people don't. I really want to hold that as an advocate. Many people don't, and I've heard so many reasons as to why. And so, absolutely.
But I still think that you do have to keep trying. I do. I think that, and I know for myself, I have not given up. But I will say it's just been difficult. But so having, I've dealt with depression. I've been depressed. I've been very sad, down, whatever. And so raising sons, or especially sons, I think, even with a husband that was a therapist, I just didn't have it to really take the time to understand what it was you were saying, because you all have always been direct, and I can remember saying, you gotta, brush that off your shoulder. You gotta, and you very clearly saying, I can't do that. And me not really knowing what to do with that. And now come full circle, honestly believe that I am very much like you, but I never got in touch with how things were really hurting me because I was masking them. Food was a way for me to just kind of shove things down rather than recognize, wow, I just dealt with something or someone who really hurt my feelings. And I was called too sensitive. I was called a crybaby, even as a girl. And so I didn't know how to be in touch with the fact that things affect me very deeply. So it's interesting. They say you get the child that you need, right? Yes, they get the parenting, but we don't acknowledge that side of things a lot of times. And I believe that part of being your mom was to be able to actually get to know how much alike we are in that respect and how much that was not addressed in my own life. And as a result, I didn't do as much the best that I would have wanted to do, even though I feel like I wasn't a complete failure. I just, in that area, I felt like I wasn't in the space to be able to recognize, hold that, and try to help you through that.
That's fair. And I think that, therapy would have been, and not out of you feeling like, something's wrong with you or whatever. It's like, I think naturally being the only woman in the house every single day with 3 dudes, you're raising 2 young ones, right? Like I just see the space, of course, from the lens of how it's benefited me and so many other people, right? But I just see that space being nothing but a good break and a reset from the everyday roles that we have to play, right? That, I think the space of therapy is really where you just get to take your mask off and you really just get to be you, and not you as a brother, not you as a mother, not you as, a teacher, not you as a professional, or not you as a higher up in a company, right? You literally get to be you, right? And I just, and again, kids pick up on stuff. I'm like, who is she? This theater kid calling me dramatic. She, of all people, a theater kid calling me dramatic.
A Leo
At 9 years old for feeling adult-like. I'm like, who the hell is this to call me dramatic? And who is this as my parent to lay that foundation? Like, I had no problem asking those questions, and it's only come back full circle to us being able to talk about it in this way. Better than we ever have before. So I think it's just a testament to what, when you get comfortable looking in the mirror, it just makes approaching everyone else and everything else just a little easier off the approach. Not saying things are going to go smoothly, that everything will go smoothly, but you'll at least feel more equipped to handle if things go well, and especially if they don't.
Yeah. And to be, I said what I said just a little while ago, to model for any parents. I don't think it's too late to be able to own whatever space you were in where you feel like you didn't do the best that you could do with your child, right? That's how you build that relationship of being able to talk to each other. Yes. So Melissa, let's throw that up. When you're in a situation, you may not see the trees for the forest, where the therapist can provide objectivity and tools. Yeah, I do too. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like that. So, us, we always give you a few things to think about. And, I think one of the things that I really just wanted to do here was just advocate, as I do, for therapy, right? So I just want to get into a few reasons as to why I see the space, we see the space as beneficial. And these are things that you guys can consider. So first, you'll gain a better understanding of self, right? I'm a firm believer in that everything starts with you personally, right? The life you want to build, the people that you want in that life, right? It literally all starts up here, and anything that you can think of, put together up here, you can bring into fruition into the real world, right? And so I think one of those things that really, separates people, right? And, not from a better or worse, just really from a, I think willingness or a courage standpoint, is being able to look in the mirror, right? The more that you're able to identify your triggers, right? Game plan strategies for yourself on how to manage some of those triggers even better, right? I think just the better that you start off with yourself, the more equipped you'll actually be to go help other people, right? We're very much already naturally born, I think, wanting to help others more than ourselves. I think we're very much people who are with giving a helping hand, right? Offering support, right? And I think that the reason that we still see posts or in our posts of, times like this, right? Talk to someone, like get that stuff out, is because we haven't been training those muscles enough of being able to look in the mirror, like what you see, love what you see, respect what you see, right? And then, really kind of walk the talk of the stuff that you've worked on, and been living through and all that stuff. So I just think that starting with yourself really is just the best way to be of aid to anyone else. And it starts and ends with you. You come into this world yourself, you leave this world yourself. So I think, if you want to help people in between that time, always be able to be willing to get a better understanding of yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I have to say, I'm going to say this, the models you are seeing in authority, none of them are looking in the mirror. Some of them are quite unhinged, to be honest, and could use 24/7 therapy as far as I am concerned. But a better understanding of self from someone who can see it and have you look at it in a different way. That is the thing that I will say was successful in my experiences with some of my therapists. And actually, I will say with each of them, there was at least one time where they brought out something where I was not, I didn't look at it like that at all. And it was really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, I would say confidentiality, right? Unfortunately, I love that you brought up that, you just haven't had the best experiences with therapy. I think, unfortunately, this is one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say as to why they haven't had a good experience. The confidentiality aspect was violated.
Yes.
So I do want to say to any and every therapist out there who has violated the confidentiality thing, you know what I mean? I don't want to say shame on you, and I don't want to say like you're unethical, but that was shameful and that's unethical as an act. And I think that, when you have someone who really does respect that and understands that this is essentially, an escape, the way that we can drink to escape, or the way that we can game to escape, or the way we can do whatever to escape, we can have this space be, just a complete world to our own that no one has access to, or that we are the gatekeepers of. And when you have a therapist or someone who really is in alignment with that message, I think that it just makes the conversations more potent. It makes you more willing to go deeper and darker into those things that are formative in your upbringing or in your being as a person. And again, those are scary things to do. Those are scary places to go to, right? But when you have someone who really does respect that part of what this is, I think that it just makes everything that much better, safer, easier to approach, like I said. And it's the better way to do it. When you have someone who really understands that your stuff stays here, I mean, not even in a file, it makes everything better. So,
well, I also know, I think we both know that there are things that cannot remain confidential, but that is said up front. But as far as my own experience with it, that was absolutely as an adult, a full-fledged adult. And I will say that just really ruined things for me. And then I also know other people who shared that same kind of experience. So I think you have to maintain the confidentiality, because that's what people are afraid of. They're really scared that you're either going to tell someone that they know, or you're out there talking about them with other therapists or your friends or family, whatever. And so as a therapist, if you know that's happening with someone who you know in the profession, I'm hoping that you are addressing that with them.
Absolutely. Because we expect from friends, that someone's going to say something or whatever, right? But you don't expect it from a therapist simply because it's also in writing that a lot of times that like they won't violate the confidentiality, right? And so also, checking in with your therapist, making sure this stays in the room, making sure, all that stuff. I really think that's just really important because they do owe you that. So you should be getting that as a basic need being met. And then lastly, like I said before, I think it's a really, really good reset. Again, to be able to manage or create new goals, strategize how to achieve them. That's one thing that I think comes up a lot of therapy that's really, really beneficial. As I said to you, in your case, raising 2 boys, living with your husband, right? That's just a lot of male energy and whatever, right? And you probably could have needed something deeper than just a phone call with a girlfriend or something like that, whatever, right? I think that it's just your own world that you get to escape to, where you have the complete control of where you want to go, how far you want to go, when, right? So I think that aspect of control is a really, really good thing, for people. And again, it's just a good reset to get you back out there into the real world where, to be quite frank, we're seeing it. No one owes you confidentiality. No one owes you them looking in the mirror. No one owes you, honestly, anything as far as when conflict comes up and, how they can respond to that. So I think just a really, really good reset to get your head back in the game and make yourself feel good to step back into the jungle. It's the jungle out there that we're living in. So.
Yeah, I think I think it's important to get a reset because especially now there are just so many things that are hitting you and actually depending on who you are, the life that you've been living already, it may not, especially now, may not be that much different really than what you've already been dealing with your entire life. So a good reset is important. It's like if you really do have, like one of the things that I miss long for in my life is that elder, that grandmother that I could go and have a cup of tea with and talk and just, get loved on. And that's a good reset. And therapy, you got a good therapist. That's a good reset as well.
Absolutely. We play a lot of roles in our everyday lives. So, it's good to take that mask off sometimes. Just focus on us.
So for me, I want to talk about 3 ways therapy can add to what you are already doing. Because I already told you, I pray. I pray. I talk with God. I truly believe in that and have seen the results in my life. But for the first thing I want to share is there are many therapists, and probably all of them should be doing that, are also recommending additional outlets. So they're not just saying, just do therapy, right? They're actually exploring with you, what else can you do as an outlet for the feelings that you are experiencing, for the way that you are feeling, even something as simple as getting out and taking a walk. But they will go through things with you that could be really helpful because you're not going to have a therapist with you 24/7. You are going to have the times that you need to be without them and experience conflicts or whatever you're experiencing. So they may say, like, hit the gym, right? If you are doing that, what's a favorite hobby or sport or things that you can do? And there's so many things out there, even online things. Everything online is not unhealthy. There are things that you can do, and they will also help you look at the things that you're using as outlets that may not be healthy for you so that you can replace them. And if you go to church or synagogue or temple, that's something that you can talk with them about as an outlet for you, and you can have therapy that doesn't counter, right? It doesn't counter that. So, I mean, if you're experiencing in your spiritual space a leader who's talking against it, I think you're in the wrong spiritual space.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's just a part of the equation. It's a piece of the puzzle. So, you are missing something, unfortunately, if this piece in some way is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Next, it has become much more convenient. There's free hotlines, and we'll give you information on that. Yes, there's online therapy. There's 24-hour access to it. And so I think that that's an important thing for you to be thinking about as well, or at least to know that information and I think it's important that we're actually having that, right, for people, because we're a 24-hour world at this point, 24/7 world at this point. And so people need to be able to reach out if they're feeling like, hey, I don't want to be here, or I'm just really sad, or whatever they're experiencing, and they want to be able to talk to someone.
Yeah, no comment. That's it right there.
And you can find someone who really listens and has professional expertise in what you're going through. Yeah, I get it. If you've got the kinds of friends that really can be there for you, that really can listen and help you through something, including looking at who you are and what's going to work for you, that's great. And some of us, like me, have friends who are therapists. And so talking with them, their training will come into play, even though it's not an actual therapy session. But because they're trained, they know how to use their skills in just a regular conversation. But most people don't have that training. And it's great to have someone who has that professional expertise, who can use their skills to help you really think about and feel the experience that you're having at the time, and be able to just help you through it, for you to get off of that phone or the computer and feel like, okay, that was helpful to me. I'm able to get through this moment right now, or whatever the experience is. I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also one of those, I would say, excuse me, like, not like misconceptions, but one of the things we want to clear up, honestly, is that, there is more access to, a specific archetype of therapist that you would want, or the type of therapy that you need. So there's more types of therapy out there. You are able to get one that, feel like you feel like really understands what you're going through, right? I feel like I hear from a lot of people, well, why would I get a therapist who's someone that doesn't even look like me, who hasn't even gone through the stuff I've gone through, right? And I think that we just have gotten into a place where there's a lot more access to, not only, like I said, the type of therapy. So if that's just a phone call late at night, really quickly, with the 24-hour hotline, or going in session with someone, there is more of a vetting process, I think, in terms of finding that good match, which is, really, really important for people to feel like they have control over, right? Who they're talking to, if that person really sees them, hears them. So just wanted to clear that up for people if they feel like, you're only going to get one type of person, and it only looks like this person, and
right.
and then you don't look like this person.
That's
so
great.
How could you possibly speak to what I'm going through, right? There are more abilities and opportunities to vet the people that you would be making this commitment
Thank
to.
you
It's a very big commitment. So put that out there.
I think that that's really important, and that's one of the things that we've done as a family, is to look for and not be embarrassed or ashamed of the fact that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone who really could understand our situation better. We're not disrespecting you and saying that you're not qualified, but we also know that the closer you can get to an experience, if that's what someone wants, because maybe you want somebody who isn't so close to your experience and they can really see it from a very different point of view. But a lot of times, if you're going to be vulnerable, you want someone who is really can understand what it is you've been through or going through, and your experiences can really, they can relate, understand. They've seen that before, heard that before. Maybe they've even experienced it themselves before. But I know for myself, the last thing that I want, me personally, is when I am being vulnerable and I'm explaining the kinds of things maybe that I grew up with, and my therapist is looking at me like, what in the world? Like, that has happened. Like, that's not
therapy's not, it's not a teaching experience in the way of, I'm going to teach you history and how the history has led to what I'm doing. No, that's not what that is. And so you don't want people to feel like they're, educating in a way, right? You want to use the space to talk. That's already the education and the teaching moment in itself. The fact that two people are coming together in that way and talking and discovering about each other. So
and then there are so many people who are afraid that a therapist, we talked about the confidentiality aspect. So people are afraid that if you don't understand their situation, that you might take some action against the people in their lives who they're not doing anything illegal. They're not committing crimes, but they're just living their lives very differently than you as a therapist might be used to. And so there's a fear that culturally, I'm going to talk about the cultural fear. I mean, plenty of cultures grow up. I know I grew up with, you don't air your dirty laundry outside the house. You don't tell people what's right. And it's not that it's terrible things going on in the home. It's just that that's the culture. You don't share it with other people. It's none of their business. I grew up with all of that stuff. But
some of those same people who gave you those messages weren't able to come to the table and have this conversation.
That's right.
So where it becomes a thing of, where do you put that?
Yeah.
You can only, box so much. You can only run so many miles. You can only, there are times where you got to say the stuff. You got to put it out there. That's what I think.
Yes, but we also want to share with you, as I said, or as we said, there are hotlines, there is access to therapy. So the mental health hotline, Need Help Now, dial or text 988 or chat online. Really important. Write this down. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's for someone else. Just know that help is out there. And then BetterHelp.com will give you access to different types of therapists, but also different price ranges, because I know, people are concerned about having to pay for therapy. There are clinics out there. You might be able to get something that is more accessible to you, but really, jot it down, write it down, keep it with you, because you never know when you might decide that this is an option for you, and it can really help you. I have to say, in closing out, that I know many therapists, and they do such good work in the world. They really do. They help people. Maybe I've seen a young person, so done a lot of work with young people, a young person who really progressed and got helped through therapy. I just know that someone personally has shared with me the help that they have gotten through therapy. I know that there are so many qualified therapists out there. So if you're a therapist tuning in, you're like, what do you mean it's therapy BS? No, we're asking the question because a lot of people are sitting with that idea that it is, and we want to put it out there for people to think about, understand, and hopefully access, use to better their life.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to say, this is for everyone. I got love for everyone. I hope everyone's able to take care of themselves and, love themselves. But, especially right now, just want to give that extra love to all the guys out there, all my brothers out there, all the uncles, all the dads, the cousins, right? All the brothers out there who are dealing with stuff, fighting battles that, people don't even know you're fighting. Just know that we see you, we love you, we appreciate you, we need you here. And, if anything, just I hope that this is something you consider that you add to your toolbox. You know what I mean? We always say we're not here to take tools out of, people's toolboxes. That's what's gotten them to survival up until this point. We're only trying to add. And so please, if you're not one of those people that I'm speaking to, just make sure you are at least of aid to someone that, is going through something. We need each other. We really, really do. And this is part of how we, remind each other of that. We speak in the hard times and, humanize some of these things that are going on in such a robotic world that we're stepping into, right? So just want to put that out there for all you guys out there. And if you guys enjoyed today's episode, please tune in to e360tv.com, Trajectory Channel, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV. More subscriptions on the way. Facebook.com, Working It Out TV show. If you want to subscribe to YouTube, check us out there at Working It Out Across Generations. And if you want to send us any love, send us any show topics, send us any just comments, anything you want to give it to us, please hit us up at Working It Out Across the Generations at e360tvlive.com. Guys, you know what we say. I mean, every small as all, every comment, every engagement, every like, share, follow, it truly means the world here. We are building to something that is bigger than us. You know what I mean? And I think that conversation is one of the first, founding tools that we got to get unlocked to achieve some of these things that we really want to see in the future. And so this is Working It Out Across Generations. I'm one of your hosts, Justin.
And I'm Dr. Lynn, your other co-host.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week.
Place with a name.